Pensacola, Florida summer of 2023. The air by the Gulf carried that sharp tang of salt and jet fuel, the kind of smell every Navy man could recognize even blindfolded. Inside the Anchor's Rest, a low-roofed bar with wood-paneled walls, glasses clinked, laughter bounced off old photographs of SEAL teams, and a jukebox in the corner kept replaying a classic rock tune from the 90s. This was where the retired and off-duty came to forget the noise of war, a place full of stories and scars. Elena Morales knelt on the floor, gathering pieces of a broken pint glass. Beer ran down her fingers, warm and sticky, but her face stayed calm. She had learned long ago how to survive stares that tried to shrink her and jokes meant to sting. "Guess they hire anyone now?" A man's voice cut through the room, sharp, precise, carrying just enough volume to draw attention. Captain Blake Harrison, built like a linebacker, 30-something, wore a tight navy polo with a gold thread trident embroidered over his chest. He smiled as if cruelty were a sport. Around him, a few younger operators laughed. Others hid behind their drinks. Elena said nothing. She kept working one shard, then another. The bar smelled of fried food, salt, and ego. Then she saw it. Something small rolled from under the captain's chair and caught the light, a silver ring, worn smooth by time, the trident emblem carved deep into its face. Her hand froze for a heartbeat. She knew that ring's weight, its pattern, every detail. It was identical to the one hidden inside her apron pocket, her father's ring. As she reached for it, Harrison's boot came down, trapping her hand against the floor. Not hard enough to hurt, just to humiliate. "Well, well," he said, leaning forward. "What do we have here?" He lifted his foot, snatched the ring before she could close her fist, and twirled it in the light. "Nice prop," he sneered. "eBay special?" Laughter rippled across the room again. Elena rose slowly to her feet. Her gray eyes met his. "It belonged to my father," she said, her voice quiet but steady. For a moment, the only sound came from the ceiling fan clicking above them. Blake's grin stiffened. "Your father, huh? Stolen valor's a federal offense, sweetheart." Elena's tone didn't waver. "Then you should know better than stealing what's not yours." Silence tightened like a wire. Harrison smirked, tossed the ring into the air, caught it, and pocketed it. "Tell you what," he said, "prove it's real. Otherwise, it's mine." He turned away, laughter trailing behind him. Elena stood motionless. Her lips trembled, but her breathing stayed, measured 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out, 4 hold, the rhythm her father had taught her before she could write her own name. From a corner booth, an old man in a faded SEAL veteran cap watched her. His eyes, still sharp after 60 years, narrowed slightly. Then he nodded slow, knowing like he'd just recognized something the others hadn't. Elena turned, pushed through the swinging door into the kitchen. The fluorescent lights flickered over the steel counters. She reached into her apron, pulled out another ring, identical but cleaner, heavier, the real one. With a soft cloth, she wiped away a thin layer of dust and whispered, "Not yet, Dad." Outside, laughter roared again, loud, careless, the kind that hides fear. None of them knew that on that warm Florida night, in a small seaside bar full of ghosts and beer, a secret buried for 10 long years was beginning to wake, and the girl they'd just mocked was about to change everything. The next morning broke over Pensacola with a hazy light that turned the ocean silver. The bar was quiet, almost peaceful, the kind of silence that comes only after too much noise. Elena unlocked the back door, stepped inside, and breathed in the lingering scent of beer, bleach, and memory. She had barely started restocking the coolers when the side door opened, and a familiar voice spoke. "Rough night?" Lieutenant Grace Holloway leaned against the doorframe, hair pulled into a regulation bun, khaki uniform crisp despite the humidity. The woman carried the kind of composure that came from years of following orders and knowing when to bend them. Elena offered a faint smile. "You could say that." Grace walked in, shutting the door behind her. "I heard about Harrison. Word spreads fast on base. You okay?" "I'm fine," Elena said, though the words tasted like sand. She reached under the bar, retrieving a small tray of glassware. He took something that didn't belong to him. Grace raised an eyebrow. "The ring?" Elena paused. "You know about it?" Grace nodded. "We went to high school together, remember? You wore it once to a memorial, said it was your dad's." Elena's hand tightened around the edge of the tray. It was more than his. It's connected to what happened in 2015. Grace exhaled slowly, then pulled a small flash drive from her pocket. You're not the only one looking into that. The archive system at base, I've been trying to pull old comm logs. It's slow, but I found something odd. She placed the drive on the counter. Captain Harrison accessed Ghost Team records 3 weeks ago, over 50 times. Elena froze. That's the same week I started here. Exactly. Grace glanced toward the empty barroom, her voice lowering. He's nervous, and when a man like him gets nervous, it means something's about to break. Elena met her gaze. Can you get me the coordinates from the mission logs? I need to compare them. Grace hesitated. Those are sealed, Lena, you know that. I also know my father's voice was recorded that night. If the exfil coordinates were changed, the truth is there somewhere in those files. Grace rubbed her temples. You realize what you're asking could end both our careers? Then it's a good thing I don't have one to lose. Elena smiled, small, tired, defiant. Grace studied her for a moment, then nodded. Give me 48 hours. By afternoon, the bar was open again. The lunch crowd trickled in sailors, mechanics, and a few locals who came for the fish tacos. Elena moved between tables like clockwork, every step precise, every smile rehearsed. To anyone watching, she was just another waitress in a Navy town. But inside her apron pocket, the real ring rested warm against her palm, its tiny LED light blinking once every few seconds, steady as a heartbeat. Chief Tom Delgado appeared right on schedule, settling into his usual booth near the window. He was in his mid-60s, with the sunburned skin of a man who'd spent a lifetime at sea. Elena brought him his usual one-draft beer. No foam. He raised his glass slightly. Rough crowd last night. You could say that. Delgado studied her a moment. That ring they were talking about? It real? Elena looked at him, then down at the table. You tell me, Chief. He took a sip, eyes narrowing. Saw one just like it once. Guy named Rafael Morales wore it. Quiet man. Strongest I ever met. Never bragged. Didn't have to. Elena's throat tightened. You knew him? Delgado nodded. We served on opposite rotations. Heard he died on a bad op mountains, somewhere overseas. Story never sat right with me. Why not? Because men like him don't make rookie mistakes, Delgado said quietly. But orders got changed. Coordinates got moved. Happens more than you think. And you know who was comms liaison that mission? Elena didn't answer. She already knew. Captain Harrison, Delgado said flatly. He leaned closer. Be careful, kid. Men like him, they don't like ghosts coming back. That night, after closing, Elena sat alone in the back room. The bar lights were dimmed, the floor clean, the cash counted. From her pocket, she pulled out the ring and set it on the table beside her laptop. The LED blinked twice, then went dark, a signal change. The diagnostic tool she'd built with Dr. Emily Carter, her elderly neighbor, showed a new line of code. Decryption, 67% complete. Her pulse quickened. The chip inside was waking up. She ran a finger over the worn inscription on the inside of the band R. Morales, Ghost 1. Her father's name. His call sign, she whispered, almost there, Dad. A sudden buzz from her phone broke the silence. A message from Grace. He posted it. Attached was a photo from the base meme page, the replica ring lying on a bar napkin. The caption read, Trident girl thinks she's one of us. LOL. 47 comments. Some laughing, some defending her. One tagged the base's public affairs office. Elena stared at the screen, jaw tightening. Grace's next message followed seconds later. He's escalating. Hey, R might get involved. Elena typed back, good, that means he's scared. She placed the phone aside, leaned back, and closed her eyes. The rhythmic hum of the refrigerator filled the room. 48 hours until the logs were ready. 2 days before Captain Harrison's transfer. And somewhere inside a piece of silver the world thought was just a keepsake, her father's truth was stirring, waiting for its moment to speak. By Thursday morning, Pensacola was already awake gulls circling the shoreline, the scent of salt and coffee in the air. The day looked peaceful, but Elena Morales had learned long ago that calm skies often hid incoming storms. She was slicing lemons behind the bar when her phone buzzed. A message from Grace Holloway flashed across the screen. We've got a problem. Call me. Elena ducked into the storage room, the smell of cardboard and citrus thick around her. What happened, she asked. Grace's voice came tight through the phone. Harrison just filed a formal complaint. Claims you've been creating a hostile work environment. Says you've been making false claims about military service. Elena let out a slow breath. Of course he did. It gets worse, Grace continued. HR already looped in the base's legal office. They're moving fast, might suspend you by tomorrow. Elena's hand gripped the phone. How much time do we have before they act? Maybe 48 hours, Grace said. After that, you'll lose access to the base. No chance to confront him. A long silence filled the line. Then Elena said softly, then we move faster. By lunchtime, the rumor had spread through the small Navy town like spilled fuel. At the Anchor's Rest, regulars whispered as she passed. Some offered polite smiles, others looked away. She didn't blame them. People feared being on the wrong side of a uniform. Captain Harrison didn't show up that day, but his shadow lingered in every conversation. Someone had printed his meme, the one mocking her, and taped it near the jukebox. Elena tore it down without a word. Chief Delgado arrived around noon. He saw the strain on her face immediately. They're trying to bury you, huh? They're trying to make me disappear, she said quietly, wiping the bar. He nodded, the corners of his weathered mouth tightening. You know, when the Navy wants to cover something, they don't use guns. They use paperwork. Elena gave a faint smile. Then I'll drown them in proof. Delgado studied her. You remind me of your old man. Same fire behind the eyes. She met his gaze. Did you ever wonder why they said his team died from equipment failure? All the time, he replied. But questions like that get you blacklisted. Or worse. She leaned in. Not if you find answers first. That evening, as the dinner crowd began to thin, Commander Mason Reed walked in. The bar quieted, like someone had hit a mute button. Even off duty, Reed carried authority, tall, lean, gray at the temples. The kind of man who looked carved from stone. He ordered a club soda, nothing more. When Elena brought it over, his eyes studied her carefully. You're Morales' daughter. It wasn't a question. Elena's throat tightened. You knew him? Reed nodded slowly. He served under me. Ghost Team. Your father was the best I ever had. For a moment, the noise of the bar faded. Elena found herself staring at a man who carried her father's ghost in the lines of his face. He deserved better, Reed said quietly. Then he added, Captain Harrison's been drawing attention lately, strange data requests, access to sealed records. I've noticed. Elena's heart jumped. You believe he had something to do with my father's death? Reed didn't answer directly. He took a sip of his drink. Let's just say there are too many coincidences, and I don't like coincidences. Before Elena could reply, Grace walked in, civilian clothes, hair loose, expression tense. She slid into a booth near the back, motioning subtly for Elena to join her. When Elena approached, Grace passed her a small USB drive under a napkin. Everything he touched in the last month, Grace whispered. File access, deleted logs, cross-links, including the stuff he tried to erase. Elena's pulse quickened. How bad is it? Grace looked grim. Bad enough to bury him. He accessed Ghost Team files 53 times in 3 weeks. He also pulled your personnel records, your mother's, even your old school transcripts. He's building a profile, watching you. Elena's jaw tightened. Then he knows who I am. More than that, Grace said. He's preparing for something. His transfer to Virginia goes through Saturday morning. He's running out of time. Elena pocketed the drive. Then tonight, we make sure he doesn't leave this town with his reputation intact. The next morning, the trap tightened. Elena arrived early to find Collins, the bar manager, waiting in his office. He looked uncomfortable, rubbing the back of his neck. HR called, he said as soon as she stepped inside. They've got a report signed by 3 employees says you've been pocketing tips and stirring trouble. Elena frowned. That's not true. I know, Collins said quickly. I checked the cameras myself. You're clean, but they don't care about the truth. They care about paperwork. I can stall until 5 o'clock today. After that, they'll demand an answer resignation or termination. How long have you known Harrison? She asked. Long enough to know he doesn't lose gracefully, Collins said. Be careful, kid. Elena nodded, then walked out. Her heartbeat was steady, her mind sharp. She wasn't done, not yet. That night, the Anchor's Rest felt different. The regulars seemed wary, the air charged. Elena wiped down tables while keeping one eye on the projector mounted in the ceiling. Earlier, she had reprogrammed it with Emily Carter's help. a simple connection between the bar's control tablet and her encrypted laptop. The ring around her neck was warm now, the LED no longer blinking but glowing solid red. Decryption complete. She held it in her palm, whispering, "We're ready, Dad." Then she looked around the bar at the men who'd laughed at her, the ones who thought she didn't belong, and she smiled. Because by tomorrow night, the Anchor's Rest wouldn't just be a bar anymore. It would be a courtroom, and every man in it would finally hear what Ghost Team tried to say before they died. Friday night settled over Pensacola like the calm before a storm. Out beyond the harbor, the horizon burned orange and violet, and the sea breeze carried the faint scent of diesel from passing patrol boats. Inside the Anchor's Rest, lights glowed low in amber, and the hum of conversation rose like a tide. By 7:30, the place was packed. Off-duty SEALs, Marines, and contractors filled every booth, shoulders broad, laughter loud. The air was thick with bravado and cheap whiskey. On the far wall, someone had strung up a banner. "Farewell, Captain Harrison, Pensacola's finest." Elena Morales moved through the crowd with her tray balanced steady in one hand, her expression neutral. Beneath the collar of her black shirt, the silver chain around her neck was warm, the ring's small LED pulsing a faint blue. Her nerves wanted to shake, but her training kept her steady. 4 seconds in, 4 hold, 4 out, 4 hold. Grace Holloway slipped into the bar quietly, dressed in jeans and a faded navy hoodie. She took a seat at the counter, back to the wall, laptop bag at her feet. When Elena passed by with a round of drinks, Grace murmured without looking up, "Everything's ready. You sure you want to do this here?" Elena didn't hesitate. "They silenced my father here in rooms like this, with laughter like this. It's only fair the truth starts the same way." Across the room, Captain Blake Harrison made his entrance. Civilian clothes tonight, jeans, boots, a casual polo, but the swagger remained. 6 other operators trailed behind him, loyal as shadows. He clapped shoulders, exchanged jokes, basked in the attention. At 8 sharp, Commander Mason Reed walked in. The noise softened, like the room had taken a collective breath. Reed nodded to a few familiar faces, then found a booth near the back alone, silent, watchful. Elena felt the shift in the air. The pieces were all here. At 8:10 p.m., Harrison stood, tapping his knife against a glass. The sound rang through the bar, clear as a bell. "All right, listen up," he called, grin wide. "Before I head east, I just want to say a few words." The crowd cheered. Someone shouted, "Speech!" Harrison raised his glass. "It's been an honor serving with the best damn warriors on the planet. 6 years here in Pensacola, best posting of my career. To the Brotherhood," the men roared back, "Hoo-yah!" They drank. Laughter. Cheers. Then Harrison's smile changed. It tightened at the edges. "But you know, tonight's not just about goodbyes. It's about integrity." The word dropped like a stone. "I've seen a lot of people disrespect the Trident lately," he went on, voice rising. "Pretending to be something they're not, wearing symbols they didn't earn." Eyes turned toward him, and then toward Elena. Harrison pointed, slow and deliberate. "Like her." The bar went still. You could have heard the air conditioning hum. "This woman," Harrison said, his tone sharp as a blade, "claims her father was a SEAL, claims she has a real Trident ring. But I checked the records, I did the homework. She's lying." A few murmurs rippled through the crowd. Elena didn't move. She set her tray on the bar, folded her hands behind her back, and faced him. "You want proof?" she said, voice calm, steady. "Yeah," he shot back. "Show us proof." Elena reached into her pocket and pulled out the ring, holding it up so the trident glinted under the light. "You said check the records," she said quietly. "So let's check them." Harrison scoffed. "That's fake. Everyone knows." He stopped when Elena began to roll up her sleeve. On the inside of her wrist, a small rectangular scar caught the light, precise, surgical. She pressed the ring's emblem against it. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then a faint blue glow appeared beneath her skin, soft but unmistakable. Gasps spread through the room. "What the hell is that?" someone whispered. Elena didn't answer. She turned toward the ceiling. The projector usually reserved for football games flickered to life. Words appeared on the wall in bright, cold text. "Encrypted log. Ghost Team final transmission. the 14th of March 2015. Coordinates transmitted 24,4,8 minuter, 69,142 minuter. Coordinates received by aviation 34.7124 degrees N 69, 2187度 E. Discrepancy 4.3 miles. Source of alteration Captain B. Harrison. The room exploded in sound shouts, disbelief, voices overlapping. "That's classified," Harrison barked, his face pale. "That's fake." "Is it?" Commander Reed's voice cut through the noise. He rose from his booth, eyes locked on Harrison. "Because I recognize that format. I wrote half those reports." He stepped forward, the crowd parting for him. "That's authentic. Ghost Team transmitted those coordinates to command at 2200 hours. You were comms liaison that night, weren't you, Captain?" Harrison's jaw worked. "Signal error. Mountains." "Don't insult me," Reed said coldly. "You confirmed those numbers twice before transmission. Then you changed them." He looked at Elena. "Play the recording." Elena walked to the bar's control tablet, inserted a small USB. The projector flickered again. A crackle of radio static filled the speakers. Then a man's voice came through, calm, professional, achingly familiar. "Overwatch, this is Ghost 1. Mission complete. Request immediate exfil. Coordinates as follows. 34.7821 north, 69.1452 east." The voice of Rafael Morales, Elena's father. Harrison's expression cracked. Then another voice, younger, controlled his. "Overwatch copies. Stand by for aviation relay. Aviation, this is Overwatch. Emergency exfil coordinates 34.7124 north, 69.2187 east." Different numbers. Clear as day. The recording ended. Silence. Reed's voice was low but furious. "You let 8 men die because you followed a criminal's orders." Harrison snapped. "You don't understand, I was told to." "By who?" Reed barked. Harrison's eyes darted, panic creeping in. "Major Alan Prescott." A ripple ran through the room. The name hung heavy, everyone knew it. Procurement Division, Special Operations Command. The man who signed their paychecks and buried their secrets. Elena stepped closer. "My father found discrepancies in Prescott's contracts. He started asking questions, and you helped bury him." Harrison's voice broke. "I didn't have a choice." Reed's glare hardened. "You always have a choice." He turned to his phone. "Base security. This is Commander Reed. I have a captain in custody pending court-martial for conspiracy and dereliction of duty." Within minutes, military police arrived. Harrison didn't fight. He just stared at Elena as they cuffed him. "Your father was the best of us," he said quietly. Elena met his gaze. "Then you should have acted like it." As they led him away, the bar stood in stunned silence. Then Reed faced the crowd. "What you heard tonight doesn't leave this room. This is an active investigation. Understood?" Dozens of voices answered in unison, "Yes, sir." Reed turned back to Elena. "Walk with me." Outside, the night air was thick with fog and salt. Reed looked out toward the dark ocean. "Your father would have been proud," he said. Elena slipped the ring back onto its chain. "He taught me that the truth doesn't die, it just waits." Reed nodded. "Then we'll finish what he started." Behind them, the faint sound of sirens echoed down the coast road. The fog rolled in thick over Pensacola Bay that night, swallowing the streetlights one by one. The blue and red flash of military police vehicles painted the mist in slow pulses. Inside one of them, Captain Blake Harrison sat handcuffed, head bowed, his reflection flickering in the glass. The door shut. The vehicle pulled away toward the base. On the sidewalk outside the Anchor's Rest, Commander Mason Reed exhaled slowly, his breath visible in the humid air. He stood beside Elena Morales, both watching the taillights disappear into the fog. "You did what none of us could," Reed said quietly. "You brought the truth home." Elena shook her head. "I didn't do it alone. My father left the map. I just followed it." Reed gave a faint smile. "He trained you well. Ghost One always believed the next generation would finish what we couldn't." He pulled out his phone, scrolling to a secure number. "I'm calling NCIS. Prescott won't be sleeping easy tonight." 20 minutes later, Reed was still on the call, pacing the sidewalk. His voice was calm but precise, each sentence a bullet of authority. "This is Commander Reed, Naval Operations Command. I have verified evidence linking Major Alan Prescott to procurement fraud and the deliberate alteration of Ghost Team exfil coordinates in 2015. Subject may attempt to flee. Priority 1 apprehension. He gave the address in La Jolla, California, Prescott's coastal home. When he hung up, he turned to Elena. They'll have him in custody within the hour. Elena's fingers brushed the chain around her neck. The ring was cool again, its LED now a soft, steady blue resting, as if its job were done. And what happens after that? She asked. Then the Navy cleans house, Reed replied. We lost good men that night. Their families deserve more than folded flags. Elena looked out over the dark water. And if Prescott isn't the top of the ladder? Reed's eyes narrowed. Then someone higher will fall with him. They walked along the quiet street toward the small parking lot behind the bar. The only sounds were the soft whir of insects and the distant crash of waves. The night felt heavy but not hopeless, the kind of weight that comes after long-kept secrets finally find the air. Reed stopped beside Elena's old Honda Civic. You have a decision to make now, he said. Legacy Operations was never official. It doesn't exist on paper. But you could keep it alive if you wanted. Elena smiled faintly. I don't want a title, Commander. I just want my father's name cleared. You've already done that, he said. Now it's about what comes next. He extended his hand. She shook it firmly, soldier to soldier. For what it's worth, Reed said softly. Rafael Morales was my mentor. I owe him everything. If he could see you tonight. He did, Elena interrupted gently. He's been here the whole time. Reed's throat tightened. He nodded once, unable to find words. Later, Elena drove home through the fog. The roads were nearly empty, the glow of her headlights slicing through the mist like search beams. On her dashboard, the radio murmured a late-night talk show, but she wasn't listening. Her mind replayed the sounds from the bar, her father's voice over the radio, calm under fire. The crowd's stunned silence, the blue light beneath her skin. By the time she reached her apartment, the clock read 2:11 a.m. She climbed the stairs, unlocked the door, and stepped into the stillness. The tiny space smelled of coffee, salt, and the faint metallic tang of solder from her workbench. On the table sat her laptop and a half-empty cup of tea. She dropped the ring onto the wooden surface. It gave off a soft metallic click. She opened her encrypted folder, the same one she had been building for 18 months. Dozens of files glowed on the screen. Financial ledgers, procurement contracts, internal memos, everything the chip had finally decrypted. At the top of the list was a new file, time-stamped 041 hours after the arrest. Ghost 7, your father's mission isn't over. Prescott was only one piece. The coordinates below lead to evidence buried 15 years ago. Someone powerful made sure it stayed hidden. Move fast. After 72 hours, it's gone. Elena froze, eyes tracing the message. The file attached contained satellite imagery, a map grid, and one name highlighted in red. Senator Patricia Vance, Defense Appropriations Committee. She whispered it aloud, testing the sound. Vance. Her stomach turned cold. The name wasn't just political, it was legendary. A senator with 2 decades in Washington, known for rebuilding the modern military. If the data was real, it meant the corruption stretched beyond the Navy into Congress itself. A soft knock startled her. She tensed hand instinctively reaching toward the ring. Relax, came a familiar voice. Dr. Emily Carter, her neighbor, stood in the doorway holding a thermos. Her white hair glowed silver under the hall light. You haven't slept, Emily said. Figured you'd need this. Elena smiled faintly, accepting the coffee. You heard? Half the town's talking, Emily said. They called you the ghost's daughter. She paused, eyes softening. He'd be proud, you know. Oh. Elena looked at the ring. I don't think it's over. Emily followed her gaze to the laptop screen, reading the message headline. Tower 4. That's a signals term. Could be an old comm node, maybe even someone from Legacy still active. Whoever it is, Elena said, closing the laptop, they knew exactly where to find me. Emily studied her for a moment. What are you going to do? Elena slipped the ring back on its chain. Finish what I started. At dawn, the fog lifted. Sunlight spilled across the gulf, turning the water gold. Elena packed a small duffel, laptop, documents, one photo of her father in desert fatigues. She paused, running her fingers over the handwriting on the back. If you're reading this, the ring worked. Outside, Chief Delgado waited by his truck. He handed her a small box inside, her father's old dog tags. "He told me to keep 'em safe," Delgado said. "Guess they're yours now." Elena's throat tightened. "Thank you, Chief." He gave a lopsided grin. "Where you headed?" "Where the trail goes cold," she said, slipping the dog tags around her neck beside the ring. Delgado's smile faded. "Be careful, kid. Ghosts have a way of following you." Elena looked out toward the sunrise. "Good. I'll need them." She climbed into her car, started the engine, and pulled onto the highway. The GPS pinged with new coordinates somewhere north, somewhere secret. The ring pulsed once, faint blue against her skin, as if approving. Behind her, the waves crashed softly against the Florida shore, erasing the footprints of the night before. Ahead, the road stretched into the mist, and the truth waited at the end. The highway north of Pensacola was almost empty at dawn. Pine trees blurred past in shades of green and gray, their silhouettes fading into mist. Elena Morales drove with the window cracked, the air warm and damp against her face. The ring around her neck throbbed faintly, a heartbeat that wasn't hers. She followed the coordinates from the encrypted file, watching the numbers shift on her phone. After 3 hours, the asphalt gave way to a narrow road cutting through overgrown marshland. Then, a rusted gate appeared ahead, its chain link torn open long ago. A faded sign hung crookedly. Elena stopped the car, killed the engine, and listened. Only the buzz of cicadas and the distant crash of waves from the Gulf. She slipped out, boots crunching on gravel. Every instinct told her to turn back, but her father's voice, steady and calm, whispered somewhere in the back of her mind. "When the time comes, you'll know what to do." Beyond the gate stood the skeletal remains of a warehouse, windows shattered, walls covered in salt stains. She pushed open the door. It groaned, echoing into emptiness. Sunlight cut through holes in the roof, painting stripes of gold across the dust. Inside, the air smelled of rust and forgotten secrets. Filing cabinets lined the walls, their drawers bent and warped. On one table sat an old military server, half buried under plastic sheeting. She crossed the room, brushed the dust away, and plugged in her laptop. The ring pulsed brighter blue, turning to white. The system came alive with a low hum. A single file directory appeared on her screen. Elena opened it. Rows of documents flooded the screen. Contracts, transfer orders, internal memos. And there, one folder labeled Senator Vance, Defense Oversight. Inside were scanned ledgers showing years of kickbacks, altered procurement bids, and payments routed through shell companies. It wasn't just Prescott. It was an entire web of power, stretching from Navy contracts to Capitol Hill. At the bottom of the final document was a signature crisp, undeniable. Patricia Vance. Elena's heart pounded. She scrolled further, finding a series of audio files, encrypted briefings between Vance and Prescott. She played one. "Make it look like operator error," Vance's voice said coolly. "The mission was off. Book anyway. No one will dig into a team that doesn't officially exist." Prescott's voice followed, lower, uneasy. "And tours?" "A shame," Vance replied, "but convenient. The dead don't testify." The file ended. Elena sat frozen, staring at the screen as the weight of a decade pressed down on her chest. Her father hadn't just been betrayed by his own command, he'd been erased by people who'd built their careers on his silence. Outside, a car engine rumbled, tires on gravel. Elena's pulse spiked. She shut the laptop and slipped it into her bag. Through a crack in the wall, she saw the outline of a black SUV rolling to a stop near the gate. 2 figures stepped out, one male, one female, both in suits. The woman's voice carried faintly through the air. Calm, cold, familiar. "Search the perimeter. The signal originated here. Senator Patricia Vance." Elena crouched behind a row of filing cabinets, breath measured. The ring flickered red danger mode, just like her father's field manual had described. She whispered, "Easy, Dad. I know." The male agent swept the beam of a flashlight across the room. It stopped just inches from her face, then moved on. Elena waited until the sound of footsteps faded deeper into the warehouse. She reached into her pocket, pressing a hidden button on the ring's underside. The LED blinked 3 times transmit mode. On her laptop screen, a small progress bar appeared. Uploading to NCIS secure server. 12%, 24%, 46%. The upload crawled, painfully slow. She could hear the agents' voices echoing closer again. We've got fresh footprints. She's here. Elena ducked behind a rusted beam. The upload hit 70%. Her breath came shallow, sweat rolling down her back. "Senator," the man called. "Found something." Boots clanged on metal stairs. The sound was too close now. Elena looked at the progress bar, 93%. Almost there. Then, the ring's LED flared bright red. A warning beep. Vance's voice echoed from the catwalk above. "You're trespassing on federal property, Miss Morales. Step into the open." Elena didn't move. "Noa zech shiopt proson." "You think exposing me changes anything?" Vance continued, tone steady, almost amused. "Power doesn't fall because someone tells the truth. It falls when someone stronger takes it." Elena pressed her back against the beam. Her father's words rose in her mind like a lifeline. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's standing tall even when you shake. 99%. She stepped out into the light. "Stronger doesn't mean better," she said. "It just means you had longer to lie." Vance looked down from the balcony, eyes glinting. "And what do you have, child of a ghost?" Elena lifted the ring. The LED flashed once, then went still. "A promise," she said softly. "Bay. A faint ping from her laptop confirmed the upload. The files were gone, transmitted, secured, irreversible. Vance's smile faltered. "What did you do?" Elena turned toward the open door, sunlight spilling through the cracks. "Finished what my father started." The senator shouted an order, but it was too late. The whine of helicopter blades echoed overhead, growing louder by the second. Dust rained down from the rafters. Elena ran. Outside, 2 NCIS vehicles skidded to a stop beside her car. Agents poured out, weapons drawn. One of them shouted, "Ma'am, are you Elena Morales?" She nodded, breathless. "The evidence is inside Project Vantage. Senator Vance is with an armed escort." Within seconds, the scene exploded into chaos. Shouts, radio chatter. The senator's protests drowned beneath the roar of the helicopter landing nearby. Elena leaned against her car, chest heaving. The morning sun burned through the fog, and for the first time in 10 years, she felt the weight lift. Commander Reed stepped out of one of the NCIS trucks, wind whipping at his jacket. He gave her a nod, not of command, but of respect. "You did it, Ghost 7. She smiled faintly. "Did we ever stop?" He glanced toward the ring, still glowing faintly blue. Not even once. Hours later, back on the beach near the Anchor's Rest, the tide rolled in slow and steady. Elena stood barefoot in the wet sand, the ring cool against her skin. Chief Delgado approached, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Morning, kid." "Morning, Chief." He handed her 1 cup, nodding toward the horizon. "They're saying the files you found are already in DC News, broke an hour ago." Vance resigned. Elena stared at the sunrise, its reflection rippling over the water. "Then it's over." Delgado shook his head. "For men like your father, it never ends. But for the rest of us, maybe it starts again." A gull cried overhead. The sea breeze carried the scent of salt and redemption. Elena took a sip of coffee, smiling faintly. "For Ghost 1." Delgado raised his cup. "For Ghost 1." As the waves reached her toes, her phone buzzed a new message. No sender ID. "Ghost 7, new coordinates available, Prague." Elena exhaled, a laugh, half disbelief, half destiny. She closed her eyes, feeling the wind brush her face. "All right, Dad," she whispered. "One more mission." The sun climbed higher, golden light spilling over the ocean. The waves swallowed her footprints, but the path ahead was clear, endless, bright, and free.